CNN just admitted that Joe Biden is probably losing the 2024 presidential elections. Now, this is CNN, guys, a mostly left-leaning news outlet, and even they're questioning the possibility of President Biden getting reelected come November of this year. This is because polls are showing that Donald Trump is just hammering away at the president, as most of his policies have led to frustrated and disappointed Americans. So back in late 2021, analysts said that the president needed to focus on three big things so that he can get another term. Those three things would be rent, gas, and groceries. 3 years later, and all of these are now more expensive than ever. And just like I said, it's showing in the polls that more Americans are just fed up with how tough it is to keep up with the rising cost of living. But when asked about the situation that we're all in right now, well, he didn't receive it particularly well. And I'm not sure what his advertisers are telling him about the cost of goods nowadays, but somebody here is lying. Because look at the expression on his face when he's told of the hard facts, especially the mention of Americans trusting Trump more than him.
So when you talk about the economy, of course, it is by far the most important issue for voters. It's also true right now, Mr. President, that voters by a wide margin trust Trump more on the economy. They say that in polls. And part of the reason for that may be the numbers. And you're aware of many of these, of course. The cost of buying a home in the United States is double what it was when you look at your monthly costs from before the pandemic. Real income, when you account for inflation, is actually down since you took office. Economic growth last week, far short of expectations. Consumer confidence, maybe no surprise, is near a 2-year low. With less than 6 months to go to Election Day, are you worried that you're running out of time to turn that around?
We've already turned it around. Look, you look at the Michigan survey. For 65% of American people think they're in good shape economically. They think the nation's not in good shape, but they're personally in good shape. The polling data has been wrong all along. How many, you guys do a poll at CNN, how many folks you have to call to get one response? The idea that we're in a situation where things are so bad, the folks that, we've created more jobs. We're in a situation where people have access to good paying jobs. And the last I saw, the combination of the inflation, the cost of inflation, all those things, that's really worrisome to people with good reason. That's why I'm working very hard to bring the cost of rentals down, to increase the number of homes that are available. But let me say it this way. When I started this administration, people were saying there's going to be a collapse of the economy. We have the strongest economy in the world. Let me say it again, in the world.
So the polls are wrong and Americans just haven't felt this great economy. That's pretty much what he just said here. Critics have blasted the president and said that, unlike him, we look at more than just ice cream when we go to buy groceries. And what's crazy is that he cited a survey and then said right after that, the polls were wrong. But do any of you agree with Joe Biden that our economy didn't collapse and that we do have the strongest economy in the world? Because a lot of supporters do not. And I'm talking about Biden supporters here. CNN's Zakaria gave his 2 cents regarding the president's situation against Trump. And while Trump is facing a lot of scrutiny from Fani Willis, Jack Smith, Letitia James, and Alvin Bragg, Zakaria says that he's actually doing better compared to Biden. He had to admit to their audience that things are not working and that the situation is not playing out as they thought it would. I know that President Biden is not fond of polls that show him trailing Trump, but that is the truth. New polls show that former President Donald Trump is leading Biden in 5 key battleground states. So that's Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, and Nevada. The surveys came from multiple sources, namely the New York Times, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and Siena College.
The pollsters are telling me voters are still extremely concerned about President Biden's handling of the economy. Younger voters also objecting to the war in Gaza. Former President Trump also facing challenges, including finding a way to win voters who are not part of his base. A new poll showing former President Donald Trump leading President Biden in 5 of 6 battleground states. The New York Times Siena College poll putting Trump ahead in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, and Nevada. Biden is beating Trump right now in Wisconsin. Pollsters warn it's still early and a lot can change, not the least of which is the outcome of any of Trump's multiple legal battles. Kean University provost and political analyst David Birdsell says Biden still has time to turn things around, but he must move quickly.
It has to happen really before the summertime because those attitudes are going to get locked in, and it's going to be very difficult to change minds in the heat of the general election campaign in the few weeks between Labor Day and voting day.
Birdsell says the challenge for Biden, he needs to mend fractures within the Democratic Party, find a way to appeal to both the far left and moderate Democrats. He says Trump must also widen his support beyond MAGA voters to win in November. And here's another interesting fact. Pollsters say the outcome of the presidential election may actually be decided by a group of voters known as double haters. Voters who don't like either candidate. The double haters living in these 6 battleground states may actually end up being the ones to put the next president in the White House.
Zakaria said that behind these awful numbers for Biden lies even worse news for the president, because he says that while polls are not accurate, they've always underestimated Donald Trump's support, not overestimated them. So this means that the lead that Donald Trump has now is actually smaller compared to the true numbers. In terms of the economy, Zakaria revealed that the survey shows that Donald Trump has a 22-point lead over Biden, 15 points higher compared to when Trump led Biden back in 2020. Now, when it comes to immigration, the president is trailing Donald Trump by a whopping 35 points. This means that Americans trust that the former president, Donald Trump, will do the right thing when it comes to the U.S.-Mexico border. And of course, there's wars. Polls show that only 33% of Americans approve of how President Biden has handled the Israel-Hamas war. But the Biden campaign has a response for all of these great Trump numbers. Jeff Guerin, a Democratic pollster, said that only one thing has been consistent in recent polls, and that's inconsistency. So again, they're blaming the polls because the numbers are not in their favor. Kind of like how they're blaming Americans for not enjoying this great economy. And there's something that the Biden administration's also forgetting, or at least they're trying to forget about it. They're being seen as the culprit as to why Donald Trump is spending so much time in court these days. And it's been hailed as one of the key reasons as to why Americans are uniting behind the former president. It's also what's kept the spotlight on him for months on end. And here's one of the biggest revelations from Zakaria. He said that the prosecutors in Donald Trump's many legal cases are biased, politically motivated people that are out to get the former president just because he's running for office. And he admitted that this was exemplified no better than in the New York indictment, claiming that this would never have happened to any other defendant unless the defendant's name was Donald J. Trump. He ended it by saying what the majority of Americans know by now, that there's no chance that Donald Trump will get a fair trial. And that's what the Biden campaign is betting on, because that's one of the things that could help Joe Biden's poll numbers. If Trump gets indicted, it might lead to voters feeling as if Biden is the better choice. And of course, things may change with the wars. However, it's kind of questionable given that Biden continues to fund them. We also have to take into consideration that Donald Trump is an outspoken person. There is a chance that he creates another problem for himself, although those are all hypotheticals. The polls, on the other hand, are based on actual numbers. They're based on what Americans think of both Biden and Donald Trump. But what do you guys think? Should Biden be worried given that his own supporters are now saying that he's going to lose in November? And will Donald Trump be the answer for the many troubles of millions of Americans? Only time will tell. But as always, I'm going to continue to monitor the situation and keep you guys updated. But I do want to thank y'all for always hitting the like button. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel for content like this, and I'll see you guys on the next one.